What's up, everybody? This is Fred Richani. We have right here via Zoom a very special guest. She is a best-selling author, a critically acclaimed author, the author of the award-winning Einstein in the Attic, available now where you get your books. We're talking to the author herself, Dana Dargos. Dana, thank you so much for the time. How's everything going?
Hi, everyone. I'm great. Thank you for having me, Fred.
Thank you for joining us from the Bay Area, but of course,
Yep.
by way of Lebanon. And this book is interesting. I don't want to give too much away, but critically acclaimed over the last year or so since it's been published. Cool name, Einstein in the Attic. And it is a book that kind of bridges the gap between science and religion. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
So, Einstein in the Attic, it's about a boy who grows up in the Lebanese civil era. And during that time, he experiences a lot of hardships, sees a lot of things people shouldn't see. So, he kind of begins to question the notion of God, as any human being would. And then, flash forward a few years, he moves to America. He witnesses even more hardships, and that definitely pushes him away. And, in a nutshell, basically, it causes him to wonder, what if we were to zap the most intelligent minds of the universe into the present and ask them about the notion of God? Would they agree with it? Would they disagree with it? What would their opinions be on it? Of course, that doesn't go all to plan. So then they are then thrust into a big worldwide scientific debate where either Adam, the main character, will lose everything or gain everything he needed in his life.
Wow, that's a pretty succinct description, and I love that. Now, in terms of the concept itself, I'm assuming you've spent some time in Lebanon. You must have had a lot of different talks with family members and other people about religion. Religion and science are always interesting topics for anybody, especially the Lebanese. So, was there kind of like an aha moment for you that were kind of the hamster wheel started spinning and you realized, okay, this could be a good story?
Yeah, definitely. So me and my co-author Said Al Bizri, he's actually my uncle. So usually, ever since 2015, about I always go to Lebanon in the summer, spend time with friends and family, remind myself of the beauty of the culture that is there, of the country that is there. Basically reconnect myself with the roots, with my roots over there. And then me and Said were pretty close, so every day we'd have a random topic. Sometimes it'd be about politics or movies or books or science, or basically he'd talk about everything because Said's he's amazing. He's like a walking and talking Wikipedia. He knows everything about everything. So one day our conversation, it was back in 2015 when things at the time were pretty hectic. Much less than now, but at the time we thought they were pretty hectic with the worldwide events going on. And I remember Said, he's all like, have you ever questioned the notion of God? Not like your personal belief, but has it ever, come to your head? Have you ever wondered about it? Which is quite normal for, all of these events going on. As a human being, of course, you would have some kind of doubt every now and then, even if you don't fully immerse yourself into it. And I told him, I'm like, honestly, Said, I did have a struggle with it in high school, for mainly reasons of people enforcing that kind of religion onto you and pushing you away, and for people kind of not necessarily being the best representations of it. So then I developed some kind of negative stimuli with it. Whenever I think religion, I'm like, oh God, I don't want anything to do with that. Since then, my beliefs have definitely changed and I'm more connected to it. But back to the main story. I told Said that, ups and downs with it. And Said told me, he's like, you know what, when I was 18, I've kind of had, I've questioned it as well. And then, from there, we were kind of talking. We're like, Said's like, I think one of us were like, okay, well, what if you had the most intelligent beings answer your questions? And of course, there's intelligent beings like from a faith perspective, where like, oh, if you were to zap prophets into the main time period or our modern time period, versus logical perspectives, where we would zap mainly just not physicians, physicists, scientists, basically everyone, philosophers, everyone just had a strictly logical perspective. Um, and then I told him, like, okay, well, what do you think of Einstein? And then he's like, what do you think of like Spinoza? And I'm like, who's Spinoza? Because I didn't know who that really was at the time. And basically we had back and forth chatter until we came to the idea of, we're like, okay, what if we have these four main philosophers, Einstein, Newton, Spinoza, and Kierkegaard, with different backgrounds, different beliefs, different ways of thinking, ways of life, and lines of thought. come together? What would they say? How would they answer the question? Would they even change their minds, etc.? So from there, we kind of started to work on the story back and forth between Lebanon and the States, over WhatsApp mainly.
Wow. So okay. So co-authored this book in different states, different countries. How difficult was that? And was the book in your head and on paper written in Arabic? Was it written in English as a combination of the two? Like, how'd that work? I mean, writing a book is hard enough, but co-authoring it in different countries and in different languages is even harder.
Definitely. So it originally started in 2015 in summer. We did not. I was going to say we created the main storyline in Lebanon, but that was actually a few years later because at first we tried to communicate back and forth between Lebanon and America, but then honestly it got put on hold because I had to go to university. I was super busy and I'm like, okay, I can't focus and keep breaking that focus every now and then, or else I just can't work on it. So fast forward to after I graduated Berkeley, a little bit after that, that's when COVID hit. And then, oh, sorry, I want to backtrack. So before COVID, I think around 2017, 2018, when I visited Lebanon again, that's when we solidified a 8 sequence story for our story. We wrote down the main points. We're like, okay, what do you think of this sequence? Sequence A, what's the initiating incident? Sequence 2, who are the main characters or subplot characters that are being introduced? And so on and so forth. What are the subplots we want to bring in? What's the symbolism? What's the themes? Blah, blah, blah. But there are very general points. So then when I went back, when COVID hit, that's when I really decided, I'm like, okay, well, I can work from home. I have this free time. I can, I'm not probably never going to have this again. How about I utilize it and, take advantage of it. So that's when we began to write down all the details. We were in constant contact pretty much every single day, phone calls, text messages, that kind of jazz. But I would say that definitely having the main storyline, working on it together in person, that was the ultimate point that helped us, kick into action.
Does Said or yourself have a writing background, or was this just kind of a germinative idea you had in the back of your mind for a long time?
Yeah. So for me, I've always been a writer ever since I was basically 5. And I know that shouldn't be taken seriously, but no, I always had a hobby for writing. I always loved writing. And then in high school, that's when I'm like, okay, I definitely want to be some kind of writer. I want to become an author. I didn't know if that would be my main career yet or a side gig, but becoming an author was always one of my top aspirations. And then in college, that's when I pursued an English degree. I still wanted to be an author, but I wasn't sure like what would be my daytime job, what kind of writing job would be my daytime job. But nevertheless, I think I've been lucky enough to always have had a joy for writing ever since I was little, and over the years I constantly improve myself. With Said, he's always enjoyed writing as well, to a lesser extent, but I think his strength is that he is very big on science and philosophy, so he's taken a lot of classes. He loves to research different topics in his spare time. He basically creates arguments that are bulletproof, so no one can topple them. That's his strength, definitely.
But then comes the other difficult part, which is publishing it, getting
Yeah.
distribution. So, as an independent author, as independent authors, did you find that difficult at all? Did you already have kind of somebody you knew in the industry? How did that all come about?
We had to do everything from scratch. We didn't have any connections. We didn't know anyone who was like an author or writer or basically had any connections to the industry. So we had to do our own research. And that involved, figuring out, okay, do we submit directly to publishers or to agents? And we found out that, okay, first of all, we had to create query letters, submit those to agents, or even a bit of independent publishers that were willing to take it on. And that process took about a year because when I first researched it, it said, okay, pitch 20 letters to 20 people every 2 weeks. So that would take time. And then in total, we ended up pitching about 250 people before we finally found someone willing to represent us. Yeah. So it was a very lengthy process, especially since, back in like the 90s or early 2000s, A lot of agents were more willing to take on unique ideas and people who were first-time authors. But now it's more about like, okay, who's a published author who has a lot of accomplishments already, who is most likely to generate us a lot of profit. To be honest, a lot of agents and publishers nowadays, a lot of them are looking for people who will generate the money. I'm gonna be blunt, so a lot less are willing to take on unique indie ideas. So when a book like ours comes up, where it's like about faith and science, and it seems like super very intense and dramatic and whatnot, understandably a lot of people shied away from it. But even then, we would be very persistent, and we'd explain, okay, yeah, it's got this dramatic philosophical theme, but it's also got elements of comedy, elements of romance, adventure. It has a lot of relatability. It explores a lot of themes of, for example, emotion, trauma, war. It's a coming of age story in essence. So there's a lot of relatable things, but also it's written in a way that's entertaining and digestible. So it's not like it doesn't open up like a science textbook where it's like, okay, this theory number one, Darwin's Darwin's theory of evolution. Oh, here's what Einstein thinks. Refer to like the appendix. It's not like that. It's written like a story. So I remember a lot of reviewers, not first time, but basically the early reviewers, they said that like, hey, science isn't our thing, but we're willing to read it. And after they read it, a lot of reviewers are like, science fiction isn't our thing, but this book made it our thing. We were willing to bend our rules for this book because it's so interesting. It's so unique. It's definitely one of a kind, especially after a lot of books on like TikTok, for example, are just like, nothing wrong with them, but like a lot of books are like YA, romance, enemies to lovers tropes. And it's like all of that cliche stuff, which is great, but it's like, I felt we wanted to explore something different.
Amazing. And hey, you've certainly carved your niche, won a number of awards. Congratulations on
Thank you.
all that and everything. So I got to ask, for people that have read it or are interested in reading it, could there be a sequel or prequel down the road? And have you looked into either adapting this for film, TV, or animation?
Yes. So for a sequel, me and Said discussed that, and we're like, we would never create a sequel purely for fan service. We would create a sequel if we had the best idea for it, and we're like, okay, we have to pursue this. So never say never. We don't have anything in the works for a sequel right now, but like if we ever get like the perfect idea, we would definitely pursue it. And in regards to film and animation, we definitely, we hope that one day it becomes a film. We're currently represented by a film agent, and he's going around pitching it to different agencies and individuals he knows. So shout out if anyone knows anyone, please let us know. We're definitely happy to have a chat with you guys.
Excellent. Well, certainly looking forward to that. And of course, everybody can check out Einstein in the Attic on Amazon and wherever books are sold. They can find more info on your website, danadargos.com. We always like to ask all our guests some random and rapid fire questions just to get to know them better. Are you ready, Dana?
I'm ready.
All right. Favorite spot in Lebanon?
Oh, man. See, if I say Saida, my mom's side will go, woohoo. But then if my dad's side will be like, well, why don't you like Beirut? But then if I go Beirut, can I have two answers?
Yes, you can have two.
Saida and Beirut. Saida for the family, Beirut for the outings and family.
Amazing. And if we're going to both places, is there like a specific spot for each one, like maybe like a hidden gem for any tourists?
Oh, God. Saida, there's actually a lot of interesting hidden gems. Definitely the Sidon Castle. That's something you have to explore. Not necessarily a hidden gem, but definitely still worth exploring. Plus the souk. You can never go wrong with visiting the souk. For Beirut, I need to do more exploring of that on my own, to be honest, because I just go to the mainstream places if I do go down there.
Favorite Lebanese dish?
Oh, man. Probably the stereotypical meshwiya in the restaurants with the boule. You can never go wrong with that. That's always a favorite. Sometimes with food, my mood will depend on it. Like one day I'll like something, one day I won't, but I'll never not like that dish. Serve that especially homemade ones.
So how many languages do you speak?
Two, English and Arabic.
Okay, okay, cool,
Yeah.
cool. Now, from what I understand too, based on what's on your website, you're also into cosplay. So, who is your favorite superhero, and what's your best cosplay?
Oh man. Let's see. She wasn't a superhero per se, but I loved cosplaying Celine from Underworld. Such a badass character, with her black long cape and the cute little prop guns I had and everything. I actually got to cosplay that in Tahoe, so it definitely went with the vibes. It was pretty dark. There was snow. It was freezing, and me and my sister were on the constant lookout, like making sure a bear wasn't gonna come behind us or like wolves or something, because that does happen in Tahoe. Sometimes bears will come out because they're not really afraid of people. But I mean, you just wave them off and they run off. But you get my gist.
All-time favorite author and favorite book?
Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, ever since high school, because when I first read it, I'm just like, wow, this amazing woman knows how to word emotions in a way that I don't. She knows how to explain every single feeling and sensation in words that you would never imagine before. And she's also great at creating characters. With Jane Eyre, I found her super relatable. I found her very inspirational with her struggle of, her inner self and her own values, and versus attaining happiness that she's always wanted for years, and she struggles the two. And it's relatable, but ultimately inspiring. It's written in a way that's also realistic. So that resonated with me ever since high school. Shout out to Mr. Mojaddadi, who gave us that book in high school. Without him, I probably wouldn't have read it, to be honest.
Shout out to him. Hey, yeah, great teacher, did a great job there, and you're doing a great job, not just being a writer, but based on what I've read about you, you've also been a speechwriter, and also maybe most importantly, you're a pet mom. So I gotta ask you, what's harder, being a pet mom for a rabbit or a dog?
There's no harder aspect per se, but they're both different in their own ways. So with dogs, they need more attention. They need a lot of love. So you definitely got to make time for that if you're a busy person. But they'll always love you no matter what. So that's a nice thing to have. You can definitely feel the love with them. With rabbits, they're also sweet, but they're a bit more aloof. For Fufi, she'll run up to me only if she wants snacks, to be honest. So she's a bit more of an opportunist. No, but honestly, she does run up to me, even without snacks. But then you also have to be more careful of their health issues. Since they're smaller creatures, they're more sensitive. You have to make sure everything is perfect with them. If they have even like a tiny hint of something that's a bit off, it's better to get it checked out. So yeah.
Hey, very cool. You do a little bit of everything. I can respect that. You also have done a lot of activism, not just advocating,
Yes,
of course, for people in Palestine, but all
definitely.
throughout Lebanon. And from what I understand, from what I saw a while ago, you also had a program, an organization where you're helping Lebanese people get jobs. So I'd love to give you an
Yeah,
opportunity to talk a little bit about that.
yeah, yeah. So activism, firstly, it's extremely important to me. When unfortunately I'm gonna call it a genocide because that's what it is. When the genocide in Palestine started really amping up in October, a lot of people or mainly influencers and people with big platforms, kind of shied away from that because they were worried about losing followers, about getting canceled. But for me, it was more of a guilty conscience. I'm just like, okay, I could ignore this issue and just post about it on my private account and not post about it on my public. But then it's like I tried imagining just going out on about my day, just posting regular day things on my public account, regular author things, regular, going out, smiling, happy quotes. But I'm like, I can't do that. I just can't. I feel like as a human being, all of us have a responsibility to stick up for other human beings. It's, being an activist, it's important, like I've said. It's also definitely challenging. So, for example, when I started, or not started, but when I really rose my voice up against the issue and I started resharing posts and quoting things and whatnot, especially on threads, I was getting a lot of hate for it, a lot of abusive messages. And other times we're like, yeah, excuse my language, but like, yeah, go get by Hamas or something like that. Or yeah, you can't even speak up in Lebanon. So, or oh, if you went to Lebanon, they'd behead you. I'm like, where did these where did these ignorant comments come from? And um, and to take it a step further, on Amazon, people were leaving so many spam reviews, so many hateful comments. But you learn how to give yourself some compassion, some self-care. So some days I won't pay attention too much to the comments. I'll take a day to myself to breathe, recharge myself, and then I'll go back in for the fight. I mean, what else can you do? I can't abandon activism, but then I can't also just fully immerse myself in it, because as human beings, we need room to recharge. We need to give ourselves energy in order to continue to be passionate about those causes. As human beings, we're bound to run out of energy, but I feel like as long as you're able to jump back into it, then you're good to go.
For sure. I appreciate all those details. I'm sorry you had to go through all that online harassment. That's just awful. And yeah, it's
Yeah. What
uh,
can you do?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I did want to also highlight too, as I mentioned before, you have also helped Lebanese people get jobs as well.
Yeah.
And from what I understand too, the economic situation has just been terrible there over the years, especially with if we think we have inflation here in the States, it's like on steroids in
Oh yeah.
Lebanon. So can you just
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the amazing work you've done with your team to help Lebanese people get jobs during these dire economic times?
Sure. So it definitely wasn't my team. I was like a small member of the of helping the committee, to be honest. I'm not gonna take their credit. But I remember when they first launched, they were coming out with a lot of videos, a lot of marketing about Jobs for Lebanon. So basically, Jobs for Lebanon, it's a website where, in order to help Lebanese people in those dire circumstances and situations, if they had any jobs they heard about, or if they had any jobs they were in charge of, or companies they're in charge of that needed to hire someone for jobs on Lebanon, or for Jobs for Lebanon, they would post those jobs online. So, for example, uh, let's say you needed an assistant, which I did. You go on to Jobs for Lebanon, you create the job profile for the job that you need. You say, okay, job needed, virtual assistant requirements, points A, B, and C, pay, how long the project is for, or if it's permanent, etc. And then from there, a lot of applicants will obviously apply for that job, mainly from Lebanon. And basically, that really helps people receive an income. It helps them receive uh, incomes, especially in a time where people are struggling to get food, shelter, water, electricity in Lebanon, especially with the insane inflation going on over there. I think I forgot the exact percentage, but I think it was like inflation has soared by like, was it 300% or 900%? It's an insane number, and I know those two numbers are completely different, but regardless, it's insane. Um, People are struggling to survive. People are pulling their children out of schools because they can't afford it anymore. Uh, the elderly can't afford their own medications anymore, even with insurance. So they have to skip out on that. Even hospitals, sometimes they're running out of medical supplies because they simply can't afford those supplies. They can't afford to import them. They can't afford to pay for them. They can't even afford the electricity sometimes. Uh, things in Lebanon are really, really, really disappointing and horrifying. But back to Jobs for Lebanon, what this does is that it helps provide people who are struggling over there with with an income to help their families, to help themselves, and basically kind of help grab that pressure and pull it off of them, at least for a bit. Anything is helpful, to be honest. Even I used it, for when I needed an assistant twice. I hired two people off of there, which was great. And they're just amazing individuals. A lot of the applicants, I don't want to brag, but a lot of Lebanese applicants that apply, they're all amazing. They have such good ethic. They have great experience. They're very driven, very hardworking. So it's definitely worth a shot to hire people from there, or at least give them a chance. Um, because there's so many talented Lebanese individuals that, because their circumstances, aren't given a chance to work or to make something of themselves. And this helps give them that chance in a way. And at least, if it isn't the income that magically saves them, at least it's experience for them. At least perhaps it'll open gateways for them. You never know. The people that post jobs there, maybe they will enjoy that person that's worked with them, and maybe they'll say, hey, I have this other job opening at my company that's actually permanent. Would you like to work remotely? Would you like to move here? Or like, hey, it's experience on their resume. So especially for university students who are struggling with that aspect, where either they will have to pull out because they can't afford their university tuition fees, or they're stuck in Lebanon because they can't travel, and they're trying to apply to other places, but a lot of companies won't take them because of that limited experiences, that limited job experience. This at least helps them in a way, So it's not a huge thing, but it definitely helps. And I highly recommend anyone who has any jobs and is looking for people to hire to go on Jobs for Lebanon, or at least utilize it.
Amazing. Much respect to you for raising awareness for that cause and for all the people involved. Yeah, absolutely. People can definitely check that out. We will link that in the show notes. We'll get chatting on another high note. What's the best piece of advice you give for success?
It's so cliche, but never give up. There will be a lot of moments of failure, but even then, I don't think of those moments as failure. I think of them more as annoying flies that get in your way. You just got to swap them out of your face and be very persistent and driven and keep going down that straight path. Because a lot of things have definitely not gone my way, or there's things with my writing that I would have wanted to go a different route that didn't. But in my mind, I don't dwell on those failures. I'm just like, oh well, whatever, and then I just keep moving forward. I minimize. I guess that's a good word. I minimize those obstacles, and I don't maximize them. That I become so immersed and dwell on those obstacles and allow them to drag my spirits down. Sometimes you got to minimize things so that you can continue to adventure forth.
Very well said. And lastly, if people haven't already been convinced already, why should people read Einstein in the Attic?
Because it is a one-of-a-kind story that is definitely bound to resonate with you. It's got an ethnic character as the main character, which you don't see too much. And it explores a lot of themes that are considered to be taboo in many cultures still. So it's definitely got a lot of things you are probably thinking about, but too afraid to question.
Awesome. Well, Dana, thank you so much for your time. Before we let you go, bonus question.
Yeah.
Is there anything you wish I asked you in this interview?
Probably like, how to, I guess, how to help spread awareness of my career as a writer, and how can people help me out? And the answer to that is to basically please give our book a chance, spread posts about me and about our book, and also, basically spread awareness about my writing. Give us a chance. I mean, I know we've won a lot of awards, but we'd love to connect with more of the Lebanese community, with other immigrant communities as well. And I feel like all it takes is for people to give that writer a chance. You won't be disappointed.
Absolutely. We definitely won't be disappointed. We were not disappointed with this interview. Fantastic stuff.
Thank you.
Of course, you can find Einstein in the Attic on Amazon and wherever books are sold, as well as more info on Dana on danadargos.com. We'll link all that in the show notes. Anywhere else we can find you online and find you next, maybe at an event?
Yeah, I'm available pretty much everywhere on social media. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, TikTok, so all 5 of those channels. For events, let me think. Nothing yet, but people have been urging me to apply for the Dubai Literary Festival. I think it's too late for that, but maybe next year. But otherwise, that Einstein the Attic is definitely not the end of me. I definitely have more writing in mind, so please bear with me and stick with me and follow me on my social media adventures to see what's next.